Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Steven with Freeze Peach Gaming. This is where I talk about pop culture, politics, and where the two collide. You can find me on Odysee, YouTube, and Rumble, and I'm occasionally on Twitter. That's probably the best place to find me. I do have an Instagram, but I don't really use it. Today, we're sticking mostly with pop culture. I am talking about Season 2, Episode 2 of The Witcher, titled Kaer Morhen, and I'd like to apologize straight off the bat give my apology for having not done this for so long. I did Episode 1, and I just haven't gotten around to doing Episode 2. I was a little bit... I wasn't the biggest fan of Episode 1, but I said I would go through the whole series, so here we are. I'm going to try and stick to a once-a-week schedule, most likely on Sundays, posting another episode of The Witcher. So, for this episode, fair warning, there will be some minor spoilers from the books. I've only seen up to this episode in the show so far, but I will do some minor spoilers from the books. I don't know if they're going to be used in the show in the future, so there's your warning. Right off the bat, they made some changes to the elves, or at least the timeline of what the elves are doing. By this time in the books, the elves have already sort of settled at Dol Blathanna, and there's a shaky alliance between Nilfgaard and the elves. Mostly they're just staying out of each other's way, and the elves that are settling there have vowed not to get in the way of a radical group of elves known as the Squirrels, who are going around just killing any humans that come into their woods. And, you know, the Nilfgaard sees this as a boon to them because they just know to stay out of the way of the squirrels, and while the other northern forces are trying to move through the woods, you know, to get a better spot on the Nilfgaardians during battles, or just to flee from them, and the elves are just outright killing them as soon as they step foot on their land. So that was a change that was made for the show so far. At least a timeline has been shifted around, and I actually don't mind that so much. I think that's mostly fine so far. At least it hasn't become a problem yet. We then sort of troll over to Kaer Morhen, and we get to see it for the first time in the show, and I actually think the visual representation of Kaer Morhen, you know, the beer hall and the courtyard that we get to see, is really good. I actually liked the look of everything there. Really fits how it seems in the books, and it looks similar to the games, but not being exactly the same of the place you're running around in the games. But one problem right off the bat is there are too many Witchers there. In the books, I think there were like 5 or 6 Witchers in Kaer Morhen, and I could be wrong, so correct me in the comments down below, but I believe that Kaer Morhen is specifically the home of the School of the Wolf, and not all of the Witchers. So that seemed a little bit weird to me, a little bit off. Like, perhaps they're just ignoring the other schools so far, or perhaps there are more Witchers in the world than there are in the books and the games, but I don't know, it just seemed like there were way too many, and it's, you know, they set you up to get the feeling that there's not many Witchers out there left, and sure, there aren't many there, you know, all things considered. You know, 15 isn't a lot of people in a whole continent, but it just doesn't feel quite as blighted, quite as downtrodden and difficult for the Witchers, since there's so few of them left in the books. I did like Vesemir. I thought the actor playing Vesemir did a good job. I think he looks the part very well. I think he's going to be a good fit, and I hope he sort of sticks together and, you know, sticks to the character well. I liked him. Eskel, on the other hand, I mean, right off the bat, I didn't like him. He's just a dick in the show. Instead of, you know, in the games more than the books, but definitely in the games, he's this sarcastic, dry-humored ass, and he doesn't like being a Witcher, but he really blames Vesemir, because Vesemir's the one who came to his home and took him to Kaer Morhen and made him into a Witcher. And so there's this weird dichotomy with Eskel, to where he is friends with Geralt and he does do his job as a Witcher. He hasn't just left the life behind, which is something he could do if he wanted to, but he still hates the fact that he was forced to become a Witcher, and it adds this nice dichotomy to the character. But they don't do that. And in fact, we'll get into that a bit later. They're never going to do that. A bit of a lore issue. There seems to be a lot of lore issues that I'm having with things that are set up in the books and the games, and then the show comes along and just wipes all of that clean and sort of does their own thing, which I guess is the prerogative of the writers. I just don't like how they're doing it. for this one, it's the elven mages being completely unknown in the show. I don't really like that, because in the books and in the games, elven mages are uncommon, but they're not unheard of. In fact, Francesca Findabar is a member of the High Council. The elf mage we see in the episode is a member of the High Council of Mages in the books. And it's after, some stuff happens to the High Council, which I won't get into. She decides to go off and lead the elves. But I didn't really like that lore change very much. It seems like there's a lot of really contrived lore changes that it feels like the writers are trying to create their own world when they should be working within what has already been set up by, Andrei Sapkowski and the people who have made the games over at CD Projekt Red. They're just really trying to do their own thing a bit too much in certain parts, and I don't like it. Kind of like the whole fire magic being forbidden, but we'll get into that a bit more later. The party scene in Kaer Morhen, where all of the whores come up to Kaer Morhen and they're drinking and having fun, all of the witchers with the whores. I don't like that scene at all. It seems like they were adding in some sexualization to the show just to have sexualization, and I didn't really like it. The only real purpose that whole scene served was to have some sort of escalation, some sort of conflict between Eskel and Geralt, and it just didn't seem necessary to me. It seems like it's something that could have been done better, and I will get more into that later when I get into my Eskel rant toward the end of the episode. The one thing I kind of liked, I just thought was an interesting scene visually wise, was Ciri sort of looking down at them, and but the part I don't like about that is, Ciri spying on them, but the part that I felt they did wrong is that she's supposed to be 12. She shouldn't be looking down at these, men, making love with women almost. They're certainly having a good time together, with this sort of knowing smile as she looks down on them, because her sexual confusion and her hormones sort of, going up and down as it would for a preteen is very much important to her character in the books, and they just seem to sort of skip over that. Like, are we supposed to forget the fact that she's supposed to be like 12? And I don't know, that felt kind of weird to me. I felt like it could have been done better, but at the same time, you can't always just do like a monologue of looking inside someone's mind in a show, have a voiceover monologue. It doesn't work very well. It certainly wouldn't work well in this show. So I think it's one of those things that maybe just have her like spying over the railing a little bit, and as soon as Vesemir sees her, she, hides away, and then continue the scenes as they had been. Would have been fine. Another part I wasn't so big on was Yen losing her powers after the Battle of Sodden. I don't know, the whole thing, it seems like they did this whole contrived thing of making fire magic forbidden so that they could have a reason for Yen to lose her powers, just to knock her down a couple of pegs, and I don't know, I don't really like it. So for some minor spoilers into the books, the second book, it's discussed sort of early on in the book between Yen and Ciri that fire magic is dangerous and you should be careful with it, but plenty of mages use fire magic all the time. I mean, you see it in the books, you see it in the games, and Ciri's even confused about it in the books. She's like, I've seen people use fire magic. She's like, no, you just have to be careful with it. I'm not saying you can't use it, just not yet. You don't have enough control. You need to learn to use your powers at smaller levels before you get to that, and even more importantly, you need to be careful about using fire as a source of magic to boost your own power. The raw elemental energy of fire can be very dangerous for mages to tap into, and unless you have strong control and a strong will, the fire will take you over, and mages have even died in these situations. And so that's something that happens to Ciri later on in the book. She taps into fire to try and basically save her own life while she's trapped in a desert, and she winds up being able to, essentially save herself, at least through another night of being trapped in this desert, but she winds up losing her ability to ever tap into magic again. So they're sort of changing that from Ciri to Yen, and they did it in this weird, contrived way that isn't very well explained, that I just don't really like. So That's sort of my thoughts on that. One part that I did actually really like from this episode, and this seems to be a bit of a theme with the Witcher episodes for season 2, is they have parts that are good and they have parts that are just bad, and not much in between. But you would definitely prefer more good than bad. This seems to be more bad than good. But a part that I liked, that I thought was good, was the three mages having their sort of vision quest together with this weird three-headed idol in this elven ruin, and they go down the stairs and they're having this vision quest together, led there by dreams that they've been somewhat sharing. I thought that whole situation was pretty well done. The visualizations were engaging for the entire dream sequence or vision quest, whatever you want to call it. And then when they get to the hut and they're speaking with this witch, I thought that was interesting. And this whole thing seems to be more of an original thought that they're taking bits and pieces of lore from the books and the games. Like, for instance, the witch is somewhat like the crones of Crookback Bog. And they're sort of making it their own, and I thought that was actually done very well in this part. It seems like when they're trying to plaster their own thoughts and their own ideas into a pre-established situation, they don't do very well, but when they're taking their own situation and adding it in, it seems to be working pretty well. So I thought that, like, the promises of power and aid that the witch was offering to the three women I thought they were well set up with the sorceress's backstories, and I thought it was really interesting that they're adding this sort of supernatural element to it, of this ancient being, perhaps, that is able to even beguile three sorceresses. So I thought that whole sequence was really well done, was visually engaging, and I enjoyed it. Now we get to the part of the show that is, once again, a bit of bittersweet here, and more bitter than sweet. And it is toward the end of the episode when we have Eskel now having been infected or cursed by this Leshen, and he becomes a Leshen himself. Or sorry, a Leshy, which is what they call it in the show, Leshen in the games. And anyone who wants to complain about that, Leshy is actually much closer to how it is in Polish. In fact, it's basically just that's what they say in Polish, and in the games they anglicized it to Leshen. So you have that, but the entire situation, I mean, first off, Eskel was killed way too soon in this show. His character sticks around for a while, even in the books, and in the games, I mean, he survives all the way up through the third game. He's, not like the main character or anything, but he's certainly an important character. And you get some really interesting relationship between him and Geralt, and we're never going to get to experience that in the show because they just went ahead and killed Eskel right away. And I felt that the whole scene could have been done better overall. One, if Eskel wasn't just an aggravating prick. I didn't like his personality in this, as I discussed earlier, and it would have been better if he and Geralt were actually friends, but it was just that Eskel had very much a sandpaper personality, that he was a bit of a grating person. He was very outspoken and plain-spoken and sarcastic and dried-humored, but with all of that, he and Geralt are still actually friends, and I felt like a good way to redo the scene to make it better would have been while Vesemir and Geralt, they have the part where they're fighting back, all of these vines that are coming in at them and everything, which was a very visually pleasing portion of the episode. It was very cool to see. They fight back against the, Leshen, Eskel infected by the Leshen. They managed to chain him up, kind of like they did in the show, and in that moment, Eskel takes over a little bit more. He manages to impose his will over this curse that's infecting him, and he takes control of the situation while chained up, and Geralt then begins to distract him and take his mind off of everything by talking about some old times they had together, perhaps a hunt they had gone on, or some training exercises they went through as kids, or just a good story from back in the day to give them a bit of history and to give them a bit of bond, even if it's only through backstory and not through current events. I felt that would have sort of raised the stakes for the situation overall, and that could have given Vesemir time to start getting together the anti-curse, or the curse removal spell, whatever it was he was going to do, whatever ritual he would have done to remove the curse. And it's one of those things that either way we go from there, it raises the stakes and it gives a stronger relationship there, and it puts more gravitas into the whole situation, because if Vesemir is able to remove the curse from him, it would be nice that, we have one of those classic moments of Vesemir gets 90% of the way through the ritual, and then that's when Eskel loses his control and he starts trying to wrap up Geralt, who's able to fight him off, and he wraps up Vesemir, and Geralt now has to make the choice of, do I allow my mentor to die in order to finish the ritual and save my friend, or do I heat up my sword, stab my friend through the heart, which would have ended in the same situation in the end. Either way, Eskel dies, but it would have been it would have had more prominence to that moment. Or you could have the difference to where, Eskel just wraps up Vesemir to, try and stop the curse being removed, and at the last moment, Geralt's able to come through and finish up the ritual, and he saves Eskel, and now we have Eskel in more episodes, but frankly, with the way he was acting, I'm not too upset that he's gone. It's just one of those things of, either way, I felt that scene could have been handled a lot better. And it didn't have any I didn't have any feeling toward the end of like, oh no, Eskel died, it's another dead Witcher. He was supposed to be an important character and friends with Geralt. They had that little bro hug early on, but that was about it. And I feel like it could have just, that little moment right there would have improved the scene overall, and it wouldn't have added a lot of time to the episode. In fact, you could have completely gotten rid of the party scene, and the conflict between Eskel and Geralt, all it was about was the fact that Eskel thought it was a stupid idea for him to bring a girl there, and Geralt's just like, you don't know what you're talking about, I'm going to do what I want to do, and Eskel's like, of course you're going to do what you want to do, that's all you've ever done, and it's always been our problem to deal with the shit that you bring up. It could have just been that simple of a situation. They're friends bickering with each other. It didn't have to be that they were coming to blows because Geralt thinks it's a bad idea for him to bring women there, which, there's more than one reason for him to think it's a bad idea for him to bring women there. The castle had been sacked in the past, and in the books and the games at least, they're somewhat secretive about the location of Kaer Morhen. They don't go advertising it to a lot of people. So, but overall, those are my thoughts on this episode of The Witcher Season 2, Episode 2, Kaer Morhen. If you would like to add to the conversation, if you have any questions, or if you would like to counter something I said, have a bit of a discussion or argument, please do so down in the comments below. Please consider giving this video a like and a subscribe, and share it out to people on social media, because that helps me out a whole lot. It gives me some extra reach, which I desperately need at this moment, and I will beg you for it. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful day, and never be afraid to speak your mind.